Cleo's toes were tickled by cool river water as she crouched on the mossy bank of Springle Creek, peering into the shimmery flow. It was a bright afternoon, sun dancing on ripple lines, frogs croaking in chorus, and dragonflies darting like living jewels. Cleo had brought her wooden bowl and net because today was Minnow Day. When the tiny fish came close to the banks in sparkling schools, she dipped the net carefully, hoping to scoop up just a few minnows for a glance, then gently return them to their watery home. She loved watching their silvery scales flash, watching how they darted away at the hint of her shadow. She caught one, then another, then noops a little bunch. They wriggled together, slippery and alive, shimmering in her net like a bundle of laughing silver stars. Cleo smiled, gently lifting them into her bowl of creek water. They swished, crowding a little at one side, darting back when she touched one with a finger. Cleo's heart danced with delight. But then she heard a sound behind her, a soft rustle like footsteps on damp leaves, followed by a voice saying, "You know, they hate surprises." Cleo jumped. She turned. He smiled. "I'm Rafe. I like minnows." Cleo nodded. "I caught some, just for a minute." She held up her bowl. The minnows darted away from the net's shadow, but bright edges of silver glinted. "Do you want to see?" Rafe set down his sketchbook and tiptoed forward. He peered over. Cleo felt proud. She loved sharing what she found. Rafe hesitated, then asked, "Have you ever tried to count them?" Altogether, Cleo shook her head. She always watched, but counting a whole busy school seemed impossible. Rafe's eyes twinkled. "I have an idea," he said. "Let's see if one mouthful of minnows can turn into something wonderful." Cleo laughed. "Mouthful of minnows," she said. "You mean put them in your mouth?" She wrinkled her nose. "No way." Rafe shook his head, half embarrassed. No, know what I mean. A mouthful as in a lot, a handful, a visual mouthful, not in the mouth. A surprise." He drew something in his sketchbook, a little picture of minnows forming shapes like letters in water, fish gathering around stones, fish shining like sequins. "Let's try making a surprise pattern with them." Cleo's curiosity popped. "Okay." She stood, balancing the bowl. She whispered to the minnows, "Be gentle, be part of art, just for a bit." Then she knelt back and gently tipped the bowl so just enough minnows swam into a shallow tray of moss and pebbles she de-brought. Rafe watched, and the minnows clustered and splashed. Some darted sideways, some circled the stones. They made a silver swirl, like a spiral shell, then a line, then scattered. Cleo gasped. The minnows, following little currents, had shaped themselves. Someone watching might see letters. SONG. It wasn't clear, but the tiny fish had created something that looked like a word in water. Rafe's eyes widened. "Song," he guessed. Cleo smiled. "Song," she echoed. She thought of creek sounds, frog croaks, wind in reeds, music without instrument. They watched. Then Rafe said gently, "We should let them go now, before the surprise fades." Cleo nodded. She scooped them gently back into her net and then lifted the net into the creek. The minnows slipped back, scattering in the water with joy, or so she felt, lifting her face as the sun sank and shadows lengthened. Cleo and Rafe sat by the water's edge. Rafe opened his sketchbook and showed her drawings. Fish silhouettes, letter shapes, sparkles of light. Cleo showed her bowl rings, the pebbles, the swirl shapes. They laughed at how silly it sounded. Minnow's spell song. But inside, they felt something magical had happened. Rafe stood, brushing moss off his jeans, and said, "I think the creek loves us when we see." Cleo nodded. She realized that surprise wasn't just about fish shapes, was about seeing what others dan. Notice how minnows drift like living glitter, how water carries stories, how a swirl of silver can look like a song. Cleo packed up her bowl net tray. She leaned close and whispered into the creek, "Thank you, minnows. Thank you for the surprise." She watched the water ripple as the minnows shimmered in distance. On her walk home, the leaves rustled like applause. Creeks in other yards seemed to chuckle. She looked at Rafe, walking beside her. He grinned back. "May discovery always find us," he said. Cleo grinned too. Later, she told her brother about the fishy surprise. He laughed and said, "Fish spells song. You must have been dreaming." She showed him Rafe's sketch. Her brother nodded. "Surprise," he said, "is everywhere if you let it be." That night, Cleo lay in bed, listening to distant creek water in dreams. She imagined minnows shimmering under moonlight, forming shapes, writing secret messages in water. She thought of Rafe drawing them. She thought of the pattern song and how it felt to see. But next day at school, she painted a blue swirl, silver dots, letters. She titled it "A Mouthful of Minnows." Some classmates stared, others asked questions. Some smiled. Teacher hung it in the hallway. Cleo realized the fishy surprise wasn't just at the creek. It was in her eyes, in Rafe's idea, in the courage to try something silly, in watching something small with wonder. And so, every time she went to Springle Creek after that, Cleo brought net tray and to her, full of curiosity, ready for the next surprise that minnows might bring. Because sometimes a handful of fish can whisper a song if you listen closely, if you let your eyes dream.